prejudices and bigotry and hatred against Islam. The documentary contained many close-up images of hijab-wearing girls set to sinister music and slow-motion images and shots of so-called radical preachers and Muslim men praying in mosques. And the message coming out from this Panorama documentary was that Muslim communities are isolating themselves from mainstream society. It gave the impression that Muslim parents who send their children to faith schools do so because they voluntarily want to create an educational apartheid. What the Panorama show, which was very confused and gave out mixed messages, what it didn't show is that there are Christians who prefer their children to go for a Christian education, a Roman Catholic education. Jewish parents prefer their children to be educated in Jewish schools. The interesting thing is these faith schools, including the Muslim schools, all have much better records than the non-faith schools. So if you're a parent and you're judging the successes of schools, of course you're going to choose a faith school for your child's education. But the way that John Ware's Panorama presented Muslim schooling was something that really was destructive towards the Muslim community. Anti-Muslim sentiment spread by the media leads to violence and discrimination against Muslims. I don't know how many of you have ever been shouted at, abused, or attacked because of your hijab, your beard, because you're obviously Muslim. I still smile at the man who shouted at me in Westminster 2 years ago and said, "Why don't you go back home?" And I said, "I do as often as I can, but you know, Newcastle is a long way." Sometimes it's best, as Brother Idris said, to ignore these people who try and stir you up. Sometimes it's quite good to put them down with a little bit of humor, because people don't expect Muslims to be funny, do they? They don't expect them to have a sense of humor. We're accused of not integrating in society. We're accused of not trying to be like English people and to adopt this sort of Britishness. There are some great aspects of living in this country, otherwise we probably wouldn't be here. But there are some great aspects. But there's some bad things as well. And just because we don't want to embrace binge drinking, promiscuity, drug taking, because we reject that side of society, we're looked at with fear and suspicion by some sections. And very quickly, just going back to the John Ware show, Islam does not teach that Jews and Christians are pigs and monkeys. The government Panorama, the Policy Exchange think tank, and all those other so-called counter-terrorism think tanks should focus on institutionally racist schooling and the racism coming from teachers and the levels of hatred directed at pupils. That's the sort of thing that they should be concentrating on. This horrible, horrible incident in Norway hopefully will start to make people realize that when you pump out hatred and you fuel hatred and you fuel the flames of racism, the net effect is the horrors of what manifested itself in Norway just a few days ago. But it is interesting that the media, as Islamophobic as it is, has discovered that there's a direct link between this alleged terrorist. He hasn't been tried yet, but there's a link between this alleged terrorist and the American Tea Party and the English Defence League, and there are dots to be joined, which brings a link to all of them. Although I understand that they're all trying to run away now and distance themselves from the sort of views that this one man had. But this Anders Behring Breivik, he talks about the Tea Party, he talks about Pamela Geller, and he talks about the rally she attended in Oslo. It was a pro-Israeli rally. I don't know whether he actually went along there or not, but it would be interesting to see if the likes of the people from the Tea Party and the hate language that's come out of the EDL have inspired and radicalised this man. Then we look at the media handling of the death of Osama bin Laden. According to the President of the United States, it was a seismic event. It was absolutely massive. The demise of the Al-Qaeda chief. I had to wonder, why are they making such a fuss? OBL, after all, wasn't a leader of a country. He wasn't someone who massacred hundreds of thousands or millions of people. He was no Hitler, no Pol Pot, no Idi Amin, a Stalin or some sort of Caligula figure. He headed no country. He didn't rule over a state. And in fact, in the last few years of his life, it appears that he was extremely reclusive, secluded and isolated. And yet the media and the American president really got out of control. They needed to get a grip in a sense of proportion here. Journalist Brendan O'Neill, the editor of Spiked Online, nailed it when he said the killing of the head of Al-Qaeda has been treated as if it were a momentous occasion on a par with the Allies' defeat of Germany and Japan in the Second World War. Raining on Obama's parade, he then added, all that really happened in Pakistan is that a small group of American soldiers shot and killed an aging, sickly man in a mansion who was the nominal head of a small and increasingly fractured terrorist organization. We need to get things in proportion. And when I say we, I don't mean the Muslim community, I mean the media, the police, the counter-terrorist men who swan around and stop you at airports. I was stopped in Birmingham recently when I came back from Pakistan, and the chappie from the counter-terrorism unit said, "How many times a day do you pray?" I said, 30 to 35. He went, "What?" I said, "Yes, I'm making a little prayer now that you'll go away and stop asking stupid questions." These people, they are the ones that have whipped themselves up into such a state. They get paid lots of overtime. They get money to give out to so-called spies in the community. They give out brown envelopes. They get brown envelopes from